Hey everyone, I have some items from around my house that I've made that I wanted to share with you. These are mostly blankets and a couple of stuffies slash pillows. And before we get into that, I wanted to just tell you what I'm wearing in case I get any questions about it. I have my I'm a knit shirt from Designs by Yasmin that I wear all the time. And I also have my Gloam cardigan by Katelyn Hunter. I knit this with Yarn Bee Warm and Cozy, I think is the line. And then it's in the color Parchment. And I love this because you can wash, you can dry it, and you can do like a light iron on it. The fabric takes it. So I wear this all the time also. So this is kind of like my uniform. And then I also wear my favorite jogger sweatpants from Target. That's my uniform most days. I loved working with this yarn. This feels so good. And this is one big box brand, I guess, if you can call Hobby Lobby a big box brand. I think you probably can. One yarn that I would recommend. I'm kind of iffy on some, especially now that I'm using some other lines from big box brands and other projects. You know, it's hit and miss, especially if it's an acrylic type yarn. So that's what I'm wearing. So on to the make. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these items in chronological order, tell you a little bit about what they are and what I know about them. So we're going to start with this blanket that I mentioned in my prologue. If you haven't watched my prologue, you can check it out. It's the very first video. It's just my fiber story. And in there, I mentioned that in college, I knit a blanket that would be suitable for my preferences since I'm so tall and what I'm looking for in a blanket. So this is the blanket, and I am 5'10", 5'11". I stopped keeping track. I don't know. I could have shrunk. I could have grown since I was last measured. I don't even know. So this is very large. This blanket covers my toes, and then I can still be snugly up around my face. So I made this in college. So this would have been around 2006 or 7 when I made it. And this was a pattern that was found on the ball band. And I don't remember what yarn I used, other than I'm pretty sure that I bought it in my college town at the Walmart, and it's probably Red Heart. So it has kind of like an oatmeal beige color. And then this is actually a deep red, not so bright. These are all more slightly muted. So then there's this orange and a purple, and then it repeats. And then around the edge, I did the edging in gold. So, you know, for something that I made back in college, I still, even after I made it, I was like, oh, I really like this. And this is the favorite blanket in the house right now, especially among the kids. They like to run around with it and pull on it, even though I tell them not to pull on it. Anyway, so that was kind of like the last thing that I knit. That's the oldest thing that I have made that's around this house. When my first daughter was born, I wanted to crochet her a blanket. And so this is the blanket that I also mentioned in my prologue. I think I mentioned most of these things in my prologue. So I did it in white. This is, oh, I should have mentioned that the first blanket was crocheted, and this as well as crocheted. I don't remember if I said they were or not, but. So this pattern, so we have some baubles, a cable, and then like a diamond lattice. And it's mostly baubles. It's baubles everywhere else. And then this really pretty border. So I got this pattern out of like a little crochet stitch dictionary. it was just a small little pamphlet, and it was one of those where like all the other patterns, I was like, I'm not ever gonna make those. But then I saw this blanket and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to make this so bad. So since she was my first baby, I was bound and determined to make this baby blanket because I thought it was so pretty. And I chose white, which when you think kids, you don't think, yes, let's have things in white. But since she was my first baby and it's acrylic yarn and we've been very, very careful with it. And what's awesome is that this baby blanket is ginormous. And when we snuggle up at night, this is actually my favorite blanket to grab to cuddle underneath when her and I are snuggling before bedtime. So then that's my oldest daughter. That's her blanket. And then for my son, this is his blanket that I made this past November. So November 2019. So this is Hobby Lobby's. I love this yarn. I go to Hobby Lobby a lot because that's kind of just what I know and what I'm used to and readily available, quick to our house. So if I'm looking for something quick to knit and just want to grab stuff, Hobby Lobby is where I go. So this is Hobby Lobby. I love this yarn. And all this is variegated yarn. So when I sent pictures of this to my mom, she was like, oh my gosh, how long did that take you? And I was like, well, it's just blocks. It's the yarn that's doing all the work. I can't remember the colorway exactly other than it's something canyon or canyon something. I don't know. But it kind of reminds me of like Southwest, I mean, obviously Southwest, like those hoodies. I don't know exactly what they're called. I'm so sorry. But anyway, so this is the front side, which looks okay. I mean, my seaming is a little lacking. But then what I don't like about it is the back side. I don't know if I'm turning it just too fast. But I feel like the seams on the back side, since it's mattress stitch, are kind of unseemly. And if I would have known then what I know now, I would have picked up stitches. But I didn't. I didn't know at the time. And it is what it is. And this is another one that the kids love to play with. So my son actually has a lot of blankets in his room. So we keep that one down in the toy room whenever they get cold or chilly, then they grab it in the toy room. So then after I made that, I moved on. I guess I can just tell you about it and then I'll tell you background. So this was the Marley Bird and Joanne's Bernat knit along for 2019, I believe. And there's a knit along going on now where they are doing a blanket that has entrelac, which I really kind of want to make the blanket since this was like my first legit knit blanket with a pattern, because I didn't knit my son's blanket with a pattern. I just knit garter blocks and sewed them together. So this was an actual pattern. This is using Bernat's blanket yarn. And so I have it in a cream, black, a heather, and then a gray. I don't know the names of the colorways. I mean, if you go and you look at them and you're interested in them, you can tell which colors that I used. So there's tassels at the end. This is garter. This is some diagonal, single, they're like cables, single cables, like twisted cable. Or a twisted stitch, not a twisted stitch. It's a Friday and it's the end of preschool homeschool week. And this is just kind of where my brain is. Kind of there, but kind of not really. And then this has baubles on the gray parts. There's some baubles and then big black fuzzy pom poms. I debated whether or not to do like the extra stuff, but then I was like, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I like it. And then, so what's interesting is that I knit these sections fairly quickly, like within a couple of days, I had knit them. This section right here, because this is a slip stitch color work section, like you slip knit, slip knit, slip knit, and then, you know, so that you get these stripes, which looks awesome, but it was a pain in my to do. And I actually got like halfway through this and stopped because my hands hurt so bad that I had to take a break. And then I eventually, I came back and knocked out the rest of it super fast. This section I think is pretty cool. This is, I don't even remember what I did anymore. But sometimes, do you ever look at stuff and you're like, I don't remember what I did, but that's pretty cool. And this section has some black tassels, and then this has the same diagonal pattern at this end of the blanket, except instead of doing like the single cable, it is eyelets, which I think somewhere along the line I messed up my eyelets. But at that point, I was near the end of the blanket and I didn't care anymore. This is very warm. So this blanket reminds me of like a fleece blanket. So if you didn't even, like if you didn't want to do anything but like just a basic like garter or stockinette blanket, it would still be really, really warm. And I have 3 skeins of this yarn left over that I have no idea what to do with. I could make, I'm thinking making hats, like bulky warm hats, and then sending them off for donations like Knit the Rainbow, because here it just doesn't get that cold. And so I think if there's something this warm, I would prefer it to go to somebody who lives in a cooler climate where they would need it. Okay, so after I finished that, then I set off on making our second daughter's blanket. She was born July 2019. And, ooh, that's an end that wasn't sewn in very well. I'll have to fix that. So I did not knit this from an existing pattern. I made it up myself and I wrote it down in Google Docs as I went, and then kind of double checked my work and then put the pattern up for free on Ravelry. So once again, I used the Stitch Dictionary, and it starts off with establishing the garter border. Then there's an eyelet and cable rib. And then in between each panel of stitches, there's a garter border just to kind of keep it nice and neat. Then I wanted to do something that looked like baubles but wasn't baubles because I'm kind of over the whole bauble thing. I have obviously knit baubles, and I also have some sweaters with baubles. But I don't know. I wanted something that looked like baubles but wasn't baubles. We'll leave it at that. So I did this wrapped stitch, which kind of has a bauble look, but it doesn't have the weird bauble texture if you don't like that. And then for the main section, kind of here in the middle, all this is just like 1 purl bump. Like I think it was like knit 5 purl 1, knit 5 purl 1. And I like the texture of it. I really do. And then it just repeats at the end, and then I added some pom-poms at the end. Here's what I'm going to tell you. My daughter is fairly new, a fairly new 1-year-old, and while the pom-poms were fun, this was not the best choice. Meaning I need to be better at doing it. Yes, Abby, you can. Sorry. So she pulls on these, and I would go in and find like bits of yarn everywhere. And I guess I just did not do these correctly. I need to work on my pom-pom making. But I used a Clover pom-pom maker, which was amazing because I didn't have that for the black, white, and gray blanket. and it's the Lifesaver. This is knit from, I love this yarn in, I don't know if it's called rosy or mauve, but like it's a kind of like a rosy mauve pink. It's the only one that's like it. So, and like I said, I wrote up that pattern. So if you're wanting a baby blanket to knit and you're interested, that's on Ravelry for free. If you just go to my profile page on Ravelry, and then there should be a section that says My Designs, and it is literally the only thing on there. Okay, so that's all the blankets. Okay, everyone's covered with blankets. Eventually, I need to make an America red, white, and blue blanket, because I told my husband would really like one, but I told him I'm very picky about what I want it to be and look like. I don't know. I just haven't found the right thing. I haven't made my mind up about it. So the last thing that I'm going to share with you are 3 stuffies or pillows that I have in our house, and they're made for each of the kids. So I have a fancy hen. So the story behind this is we moved to Lexington last June, and they have a couple of yarn stores here, which I was super excited about. And so we went to Magpie Yarn here in Lexington downtown, and my daughter saw a sample of fancy hen knit up in the shop, and she was like, "Mommy, I want a chicken." And I was like, okay. I thought maybe she would want a bear or something else, but she didn't. So I found the pattern on Ravelry, I got it, and she got to pick out one yarn. So she picked out the blue yarn, which worked out great because the blue yarn is independently dyed by somebody here in Lexington, and the color I think is called Wildcats, which is perfect for UK. So this is, her chicken is made exactly to pattern. I followed it exactly. And then I added some pony bead eyes, and it's perfect because you can snuggle it, but it really is like, it's a good pillow. It legit. So after I made hers, I had to make the other 2 kids one because I don't want, you know, I want them to have one. So then I made one for my son. I love his. So this is the same blue yarn that is in my daughter's. And what I did is I still followed the pattern, but I changed the color work. I figured out the math as far as the chart, and then just kind of designed something that I thought fit more of his personality. And this is very much him, kind of like a little bit rock and roll. I don't know. There's something about this that when I look at it, I'm like, that is totally him. And then for our smallest one, we have her fancy hen. And so same blue yarn. So they all have the same blue yarn. And if we have any more kids, I kept that ball so that if we have any more kids, then I can make any other children that come into our family a chicken with color work with the same blue yarn. Now what you should know is that, like, if I hold up my coop here, here's my coop. So the blue is all the same. The gray, the coral, and the purple are all just leftover yarn that I already had that was gonna never be used unless I did this. So, and these 2 are actually stuffed with the rest of the yarn because they were huge skeins of yarn, huge. So these are stuffed with yarn. And for this one, I stuffed what I could with the leftover yarn, and then the rest is just batting. So, and I did hers. Her color work was very simple, but kind of just sweet, a little bit country. I don't know. I really like hers. So that's my coop. Isn't that fun? But I've said I'm only making these for my kids. And eventually one day my grandkids. Wouldn't that be cool if I was able to make that blue yarn last? Oh my gosh. if I made all my kids a hen with that blue yarn, and then they had kids, and then I made my grandkids chickens with color work in that blue yarn. I love things like that. Like that to me is what makes things so special. We'll see if we can make that work. I have quite a bit left. So that's kind of all of my homeware as far as my knitting goes. I wanted to kind of just throw this in and share it with you because I don't know when else I would have shared it. Whatever. Anyway, so thanks for coming to hang out. If you have any questions, you can check out Ravelry for project information, although I don't know that there's too much detail in there. What you should know is that the majority of all of this is knit with acrylic yarn that you can buy at Hobby Lobby, Michael's, or Joanne's. That's it. And all of the patterns, so this pattern was on Ravelry. You can find my blanket. It's called Claire's blanket because that's her name and it's her blanket. That's how original I was. So I have this up on Ravelry if you wanted to look at it. This you can find on the Joanne's website and it's for free. And I should mention that this blanket is on the Joanne's website for free. It is in 6 sections of instructions, and for every single section, Marley Bird has a tutorial to walk you step by step through any of the tricky parts, which is amazing. This is just garter blocks, okay? And this blanket, I don't even know if you can find something online for it, because I've had those little crochet booklets for years and years and years. I don't know if they have them still. If they do, I'll let you know. And then this was on a ball band because I knit this before I knew about Ravelry. So that's where you can or cannot find everything. That's it. That's all I have. Like I said, thanks for coming to hang out with me. I enjoy you coming. I hope that you come back, and I'll see you next time.